What is up, fellow summoners, and welcome to the channel today. Wow, can we all step back and take a deep breath? There is a lot of information that has been dropped on us all of a sudden, which we knew it was coming, and it's always really exciting in the community around the game when stuff like this is dropped. But late last night, I was up in the middle of the night, because that's what you do with a newborn, thumbing through my Line app and saw the Google document and started reading through it and was thinking about it all night long. Very excited to be able to put this first, well, it's not a first look video in the sense like my other ones where I'm going to break down each individual character like to the T, but this is going to be much more of kind of an overlook of all the characters just because there's so much information. And we will have the new special event dropping, I think tomorrow, the 27th. Is tomorrow the 27th? Yeah, Wednesday. So we'll wait till we actually see the animations and get actual values for percentages and timers on debuffs before I put out the first look video. But this is going to be kind of just an overview, like I said. There's just too much information here to let it slide by. So I didn't want to break them down each into individual videos. We'll do that later, but I want to just kind of give my first initial thoughts. Now, before I do jump into any of this, I want to give a big shout out to JJW over on Reddit. He is the person responsible for data mining this information, for getting it all put together in this nice, tidy format on this Google document, which this document I'm using, the original will be linked in the description of this video. JJW also puts out a podcast called the Unofficial MCOC Podcast, which I very much am looking forward to catching up on that. I've not heard of that before, so very interested in that, so definitely go check that out. The link to that will be in the description below. Now, I find it very funny that just yesterday afternoon I put together my Bottom Line, the podcast, which I usually have out on Fridays, but because of the baby being born, my days were all messed up, so the third part of that series went out yesterday. Check that out if you haven't. The link will be down in the description as well. I was talking at the end of that how the game, with the State of Alliance War, there's just, I find it very difficult to put in a lot of time and effort into the game to getting new characters, just because the game is such in like this flux, strange, just strange state right now. And I was just trying to find ways to be interested and to log in and play, and within just a couple of hours, my intrigue level is peaked again, and I'm right back into the game. So there's a lot of information here. There's a lot of new things. I will, like I said, I'll go through them briefly. We'll just kind of do a first reaction on all of this. But yeah, really am very much looking forward to more information coming out in the coming days. Now, with all of this being dropped, let me go down here. Morningstar, the second on the page here. This is the boss that you will be fighting if you're going to New York Comic-Con. In that contest that's going on at the MCOC booth. So now that we have some basic overview information, we can start putting together game plans in order to be able to take her out. And then obviously, once we see gameplay here in the next couple of days, we'll be able to further kind of theory craft on how to best take her down. So I very much am looking forward to that. I won't touch so much on that in this video, but do know that that will be coming here in the coming days. So it looks like, you know, obviously Mephisto, where's he at? Right here. Mephisto is Mystic. Let me scroll down. Morningstar is Mystic. And then Blade, I think a lot of people were hoping that he was going to be skill. I too was kind of leaning towards the fact that he'd be skill, just because I felt like the skill class really needed somebody to prop it up next to Gwenpool. Really, Gwenpool is about the only saving grace in the skill class right now. And obviously everybody knows the Mystic class is just full of really good characters. There aren't too many Mystic characters that have come to the game that have totally missed the mark. The only one I can think of off the top of my head that really nobody finds any use for is Loki. I mean, even Juggernaut, even though people don't use him a lot, he still had a lot of use in Alliance War on defense. Not so much now, but I guess the point I'm trying to make is pretty much every Mystic character that has come has been really good. So I guess in that sense, we at least can rest assured that these three characters will at least be kind of intermediate to high tiering as far as overall when compared to the other characters in the game. I think they have a chance to be much more than that, but again, we'll wait and see. So Mephisto is the first character that we will look at here, and basically just looking at his attributes right here at the top, he's poison immune, frostbite immune, cold snap immune. He turns incinerates right here. He turns incinerates. He's immune to them, but he turns that into power, generating power for himself per second. Also has energy resistance. All of those things right there kind of add up for me to looking like a very strong Alliance Quest character. Somebody who can take down any path. He does have regeneration as well, which we'll get into all of that. But because of this persistent charge right here, that's what really kind of lends itself to being somebody who's going to be used in a lot of fights consecutively. This ability to kind of carry buffs with him from fight to fight, that is something we've never seen before. Is also something that Morningstar displays, which we'll talk about when we get to her. But essentially, it's a persistent soul charge is what it's called. It says starts the quest. I'm assuming you start the fight with, and again, these are just placeholders here. It says 1, but who knows what this number actually is. This could be 0. Mephisto starts the quest with a persistent soul charge and gains an additional charge each time he knocks out an opponent. Now, there are several things that these soul charges will do. The first is this persistent fire right here. For each soul charge, it does a percentage of incinerate damage to the enemy. Think of this very similar in terms of like Red Hulk when you have his overheat charge. Every time you attack the enemy, there's that additional little tick of damage that fires off. So I kind of would guess that Mephisto's base damage is probably going to be a little bit low, and then that will be offset and compensated with the additional this persistent soul charge, this incinerate damage that he will be doing. Plus, he also has a fire aura that will be also ticking incinerate damage as well. So I think, if I'm wrong here, he may be absolutely insane damage-wise, but my guess would be that, kind of like Dormammu, his base stats might be a little bit lower as far as attack power goes, which will then be compensated through this incinerate damage. So yeah, his persistent soul charges, the more you have of them, the more incinerate damage he's going to be doing. This persistent heal, you could think of this something very similar to like Punisher 2099, even Iron Man, Superior Iron Man, Ultron, maybe even like Phoenix. When you get below a certain percentage of health, he consumes each of those soul charges that's built up and regenerates a percentage of his max health per charge. He does not take damage while he's consuming this, so this is very, very similar to Phoenix. The Fire Aura, this is what I was talking about a second ago. When Aura of Incinerate is active, Mephisto generates power through his passive power gain. Also, for each stack, nearby opponents take Incinerate energy damage per second. So this is kind of a double-edged sword here. When the Aura is active, he is generating his own power, similar to like a Doctor Strange. Also, he is incinerating the enemy passively without doing anything. You can almost think of this like a Limbo buff. When Limbo is up, it's triggering damage on the enemy without you having to do anything. So that is very, very interesting right there. Yeah, I'm just kind of having like PTSD flashbacks to old Alliance War fighting Magic with Limbo. With new Alliance War, whenever that's going to drop, could we see kind of a Magic 2.0 with this Fire Aura? Who knows? I guess get out your vultures to absorb that incinerate damage. Soul Prison, Mephisto imprisons the opponent's soul at the start of a fight, reducing their chance to activate buffs for percentage over a certain amount of seconds. SP1, Soul Imprisonment. Mephisto blasts lava from his mouth and immediately summons a mystical wave of bones, imprisoning the opponent's soul. That'll be very interesting to see how that animation all plays out. The blast of lava from the mouth, I guess I'm kind of picturing something similar to Ghost Rider. Is it the S2? Yeah, his S2 where he blasts the fire. I would assume it's probably something very similar to that. But this is going to consume one of those persistent soul charges to imprison the opponent's soul, reducing their chance to activate a buff for a percentage over a certain amount of seconds. I don't know if that'll be 100%. I don't know what the seconds will be, but you'll have to be very, very mindful of using this because that is going to consume one of those soul charges, which is going to lower both the persistent fire damage and also is going to reduce your heal if you are consuming that. So just be very, very aware of using that SP1. Aura of Incineration, the SP2. This is where that Aura of Fire comes into play. You incinerate the opponent, dealing energy damage per stack over a certain amount of seconds. This also removes specific block chance, yada, yada, yada. Activates, right here, this is the big one, activates an Aura of Incineration around himself that lasts for a set amount of time, which, again, if you go back up here, that is talking about the Fire Aura right here. So the SP2 is going to give him a passive power gain. He's also going to be giving passive damage to the enemy through the Incinerate. And then the SP3, once a fight, Mephisto instantly drains up to, I don't know, blank bars of power from the opponent. If the maximum amount is drained, Mephisto activates his aura of incineration for the rest of the fight. The wording on this is a little bit confusing. It says once a fight, so I'm assuming every single time you use this, it is going to power drain, but there is a chance that it's going to do like its maximum power drain, which if it does that, it looks like it activates this aura of incineration for the remainder of the fight, which that... I don't know if this could be augmented by ability triggers to have the chance to have the max power drain, but that could be very, very strong if we're talking about like fights that are really drawn out. If you get that right away, like I'm kind of imagining like Realm of Legends, but Labyrinth of Legends. Like if you had him as a 5-star, you were able to use that SP3 like right away at the beginning of the fight, and then have that aura of incineration on the entire time. That could do a lot of damage. I don't know. Again, all this depends upon what the actual numbers come out to be. It could be very minimal damage, but I don't know. The potential for it is really, really strong, I guess is what I'm trying to say. Signature ability, Mephisto burns with anger when getting struck, activating his aura of incineration around himself. Mephisto burns with anger, having a chance to activate his aura of incineration. Basically, it looks like when he gets hit, there is a chance to activate this, which makes him a very good defender. In addition to that, though, it looks like if you do a parry, there is also a chance to gain this as well. So this is not going to be a defensive-only ability. There's a percentage that you will also be able to trigger it on the offensive side by having parries. Some really interesting things here are synergies for all these new characters. The synergies look very strong. There's been a really kind of a different mindset when it comes to synergies, kind of starting back with, was it Stark Spider-Man? I think it was right around that time where we saw unique synergies as opposed to very generic like attack, crit damage buffs. That continues on here with all of these characters. Got really strong synergies with Dormammu, Doctor Strange, Ghost Rider. You can read through these here. The one that I really want to point out is Pact Demon. So Mephisto has a synergy with Doctor Strange, which increases his lifesteal. Very, very cheeky, Kabam. I see what you're doing there. Instead of going in and updating the characters that we have been complaining about forever, they're giving kind of a passive buff here through synergies, which we've seen that a couple of times with other characters as well. So that's kind of interesting, but the big one here, at least in my opinion, is Ghost Rider. A 10% increase to attack at the start of the fight. Plus, we will see later, there's another synergy, I think it is with Blade, increases the chance to have a judgment as well. So I think Ghost Rider might be the big winner here when it comes to synergies, having increased attack power, increased chance for the judgment. Again, it depends upon what the chance is on the judgment. But yeah, he looks like he could be very, very strong. Right, let's go down here to Morningstar, and quickly, I know I'm missing a lot of things. There's many other things I could talk about, but like I said, I just want this to be a very kind of a quick, quote-unquote, quick overview. So next up here is Morningstar. All attacks have a plus, plus whatever it is, attack per captured soul, which these captured souls, this is a big part of her abilities, and these are things that can travel with her, like Mephisto and his persistent, what's it called, persistent soul? Where is it at here? Persistent charge, persistent soul charge. So the equivalent of that with Morningstar is a captured soul, which is a lot of soul references. It's going to be difficult to keep all of these things kind of separated. But this works in the very same manner as Mephisto. So over the course of a quest, Morningstar weapon captures souls and stores up to whatever that is of them. I'm assuming it's probably 5 would be my guess, just because there's nothing past 5 souls here. Empowering both her and itself, captured souls travel with her from fight to fight. When struck with a physical contact attack, Morningstar has a % chance to cause her opponent to bleed. Yeah. So not only does Mephisto look like he could be a very strong character by being able to put up his fire aura when he's getting hit, Morningstar also has the ability and a chance to place a bleed on the enemy when getting hit. So it's kind of interesting how those two characters mirror each other so closely. But yeah, we'll talk about all of that as far as how that relates to the contest at New York Comic Con in another video. So this is what will happen as you gather more souls. 2 soul charges. Special one triggers Unstoppable. The big one, I think, of all of these is 3 and 5 souls. I think 5 souls is the big one when you are playing her. I think 3 souls is the big one when you are playing against her. And I say that because the S2 becomes unblockable, which if I jump down here and read this, Morningstar channels her pain, rage, and hatred into a beam of pure power. And what I find so interesting about this is the very next line. It says each hit of this attack. So this is not going to be one solid beam like picture an Ultron S1, in Iron Man S1, Iron Man S2. I'm assuming this will probably something more similar to Cyclops, how his beam has several hits to it, but I wouldn't be surprised if they tweak that even further to make it even more difficult to be able to avoid. That's why having the S2 unblockable will be such a big deal. Like if it was just a single beam, making the S2 unblockable, I don't feel like is that big of a deal. But I think that they've probably tied this unblockable ability to the S2, made the beam probably a little bit more difficult to work around because there are several hits to it. And then, like I said, for 5 souls captured, there's a percentage chance on a hit to lifesteal. So again, this is going to be very similar to like Ghost Rider, how his regen works, or Doctor Strange, except that it's going to be just kind of a % chance across the board whenever you have 5 souls. Heavy attacks, there's a chance to trigger a power gain. Percentage of max power per captured soul over 2 seconds. So basically, the more stacks you have, the more power you're going to gain. That is based around the heavy attack. The S1, each hit of this attack deals bonus energy damage per captured soul. This damage increases with critical hits. Again, this is very similar. If we go back up, I hate to jump around back and forth, but if we go back up here, that's very interesting. It mirrors very closely this persistent fire, how he does. Mephisto does more incinerate damage based upon the soul charges he has. For the S1 with Morningstar, it's the same thing. The more captured souls she has, the more damage that the S1 will be dealing. The S2 we talked about already. It's a pure beam. Chance to nullify buffs, gain block penetration. The S3, this one took me a while to read through before I really understood it. Morningstar begins to pull her opponent's soul from their body, placing a counter on herself. Damage to the opponent increases the counter. Damage to Morningstar reduces it. If the counter reaches whatever the number is, she captured the soul, reaches whatever it is, her opponent reclaims her soul. So basically, you're going to fire off the S3. You're going to get some sort of a buff on yourself. The more damage you do to the enemy, that buff will gain. I don't know if it's like a 0 to 100 thing, but at some point, once you do enough damage and that reaches a certain number, you will gather that soul, and that is how you will be able to get, 2 souls, 3, 4, 5 souls. But the flip side of that is if you use the S3 and you don't play well and the enemy does damage to you, you lose that counter. You're going to lose the chance to get that soul charge. Morningstar can capture only 1 soul per fight. So I don't know. I'm hoping that using the S3, it's not too difficult to grab that. Otherwise, this is ability that's really only going to be useful in longer fights or like an AQ, AW kind of thing. Signature ability, the Soul Link. If Morningstar has less than whatever the captured soul is at the start of the fight, she gains 1. I'm assuming if she's at 0, she'll probably gain 1. Morningstar's weapon grants her a link to her opponent's soul, allowing her to siphon away a portion of the power from any fury, power gain, or regeneration buff they trigger, reducing their potency by a percentage and granting her her own buff. We have not really ever seen anything like that before. I think that she certainly probably will need to be awakened. Not only does she automatically gain a soul, or captured soul, what is it called here? Yeah, she automatically gains a captured soul, basically if you don't start the fight with one. But in addition to that, every time the enemy gains a fury buff, a regeneration buff, or a power gain buff, she also triggers her own lesser version of that. So fights against like Wolverine, you're going to be triggering your own regen all the time. Fights against characters like Mordo, you're going to be triggering power gain all the time. There's just that's a very interesting ability. So I think you're really going to have her awakened in order to see her full ability. Again, with the synergies, there's a lot going on here. I think one of the biggest ones that I want to point out here, Master of Swords. So Master of Swords is with Guillotine. If she has less than blank captured souls, she gains one. So I don't know if that is similar to the Awakened ability or if that will be in addition to it. So there could be a chance that if you have her Awakened Morningstar plus you're running a synergy with Guillotine, there may be a chance to start the fight at the beginning if you have none with maybe two captured souls, depending upon how all that times out. And then the other big one right here, the buffs. The buffs are interesting. For Morningstar specifically, you know, the minor buffs that she gains, copies of Furies, regens, power gains, they're going to last 20% longer. Angela's buffs last 20% longer. That's nice. But right here, man, Magic is getting a buff. Her critical rate and her critical damage are going to increase while Limbo is active, which, oh my god, my mind instantly went to my Labyrinth of Legends run with Magic. I wish that I could have had that increased crit damage and crit rate, because my my Limbo was up a lot. So yeah, that's a big plus for those of us that got 5-star Magics at 455. And then lastly, we have Blade, which I don't want to speak for everybody in the community, but I know for myself personally, he was certainly the character that I was most looking forward to seeing. I don't think he disappoints at all. There's a lot of really interesting mechanics going on here. Danger Sense is his passive ability. When against a dimensional being, Danger Sense activates and grants him increased attack rating while also reducing the opponent's ability accuracy, which again, this is only against dimensional beings, but it can be further increased. I'm going to jump right down here to his synergies. This Demon Hunter, when you go with Mephisto or Dormammu, it increases the Danger Sense. That bonus expands to include all Mystic Champions, which is pretty interesting there. Then right here, the Auto Block. This looks like a new mechanic, which this is kind of following on the heels of Medusa, which we first saw Auto Block kind of introduced to the game. But Blade has a chance to Auto Block any attack made when dashing towards his opponent. This can trigger the Parry Mastery. It's a % chance to Auto Block if Danger Sense is active. So essentially, he is going to be much more effective against dimensional beings. If you are running the synergy with Mephisto or Dormammu, he's going to have an even higher chance against all Mystics to have this auto block. That will be very... I'll be very interested to see what this percentage is. I mean, a high... I would say... Oh, I don't know. I can't imagine that it would be too high. Otherwise... Basically, you're running into a situation where you're just going to dash back and run forward, dash back, run forward as much as you can, because you're either going to get the intercept or there's a high chance you're going to get the auto block. And you'll see here in a second that he also has regen, so you're almost not even afraid of taking damage. I don't know, he looks like he could be a very strong offensive character. That auto block combined with Danger Sense, I don't know, that's a very, very intriguing. I will be very interested to see how that plays out. Blade's immune system attacks alien substances, shrugging off debuffs up to blank percentage faster based upon his current power. That we've never really seen anything like that necessarily. We've seen power bars linked to regen, but we've not seen power bars linked to shrugging off debuffs, so actually I really, really like that. For every stack of bleed on the opponent, you generate percentage of a bar of power per second. Again, not really seeing anything like that either. Which it doesn't necessarily say here that you're going to be triggering bleeds with your regular attacks, but I'm going to assume that is the case. The SP1, a powerful sword and glaive attack, inflicting deep wounds upon the opponent. Sword and glaive attack, that kind of harkens back to Angela's S2, how she kind of throws her axe at the end of her swinging sword attack. I would be interested to see if that isn't very similar to that, but inflicts bleed here. Bleed, the SP1 inflicts bleed, direct damage over a certain amount of seconds. That's a great way to be able to place bleeds to increase your power gain, and then we'll also see later to gain some regeneration. The SP2, this fast multi-hit sword art, finishes with a blast from Blade's machine pistol, inflicts bleed on critical hits, dealing direct damage per stack. For each bleed inflicted, Blade instantly generates a % of power. So again, you've got the bleeds right here that are giving power gain, and then you also have a chance here for each bleed inflicted with the SP2 to gain power. So this could be one of those things where we see a character who has got kind of lower base damage, but it's somebody who is going to be relying on a lot of damage built into his specials, and because of all the power gain going on, you're going to be firing those things off a lot, which I'm all for that. SP3, the Daywalker's Wrath. Blade throws both his glaives in an arc and immediately starts to strike his opponent with his sword, allowing for just enough time for his glaives to return, land the finishing blow. Inflicts stacks of bleed, doesn't show here, each dealing direct damage over time. So again, SP1, SP2, and SP3 all linked to bleeds, which sounds very kind of generic, but you got to remember those bleeds are also giving him power gain. And also, if we go down here into his signature ability, it's also giving him his regeneration. Blade consumes his own power to recover from injuries at amazing rates when below a percentage of health, which again, this goes back to the same thing that Mephisto does. Once you hit a certain amount of power, or excuse me, a certain amount of health, once you go below that, Blade's healing factor allows him to recover health for the cost of bars of power per second. So the more power that you have, the more regen you're going to be getting back. But basically, it's going to be draining your power as your health is going up. So there's a lot of really interesting mechanics going on here. And you can kind of see how having the increase to the power gain is going to help his other abilities, because you're going to be kind of draining that power from time to time. But the big one here is he does have a passive power, or passive regeneration. It's kind of interesting because it says if he is nearby a bleeding opponent. I don't know if that means only while you're up against attacking them if you're going to be regenerating, or if that's just kind of a wording placeholder. I don't know. I don't know. We won't know until we see that. But I guess that would kind of make sense. You don't want the regeneration to be like super OP, so that might be one way to nullify its ability a little bit by only allowing it to trigger when you're up close to enemies. But again, very similar to really actually all three of these characters. They all three look like they're very strong, but definitely benefit from having their awakened ability. And then finally down here underneath of synergies, again we touched on the one with Mephisto and Dormammu increasing the danger sense. Heightened Sense increases the potency for Danger Sense bonuses, which I'm assuming that is going to increase the chance to auto block, again for Dimensional Beings and for Mystics. And then again right down here with Ghost Rider, this is the one I talked about earlier, increases the chance to place a Judgment. Danger Sense bonuses expand to include all villain champions. So not, if I forgot to talk about that at the beginning, so straight out of the box, Danger Sense is a bonus to Dimensional Beings. If you're running with Mephisto or Dormammu, it includes all Mystics. And then if you are running Ghost Rider as well, it includes all Dimensionals, all Mystics, and all villain characters. I don't know, could be really, really cool. We've seen now two characters here basically back to back who have got this auto block mechanic. And really, if you look at all three of these in their own ways, in different ways, they're all really strong defenders, which I guess I'm kind of like scratching my head, like they nerfed Alliance War in such a way that it doesn't matter who you use, and at the same time present us with characters in Kingpin, Medusa, and now three what looks like Mystic characters that all have got very strong defensive tendencies as well. I guess they were thinking they were rolling out the diversity and they needed more characters for that. I don't know what the thought was behind that, but these characters, all three of them, look like they would run really good kind of dual purpose offense or defense, and would make very strong additions basically to anybody's roster. Alright, I know that was a ton of information. Let me scroll down here so you can see it. This was the JJW right here. This is the gentleman that I talked about earlier. That is the information to all of his, to the Discord server, to his podcast, which again we'll have linked down in the description below. But once again, big shout out to him. Alright guys, I enjoyed this very much. I love looking at new characters. I love getting my hands on them for the very first time. And we'll do further breakdowns on these as we actually get gameplay and more hard numbers in the coming days. But certainly let me know what your hype level is for these characters. They're all Mystic, so you know they're all going to be very good, but would love to hear feedback as to what you think, which one will be your favorite. If I missed out on anything, which I'm sure I did, go ahead and leave those comments below, and look forward to hearing from you guys. All right, until I see you all in the next video, have a great day.